Hi everyone. I just wanted to touch base with all of you. Um, we're in our second week of doing our distance remote learning, and this week we're focusing on the topic of nature versus nurture. And so in this folder this week, you'll see everything that you need to complete the assignment. The assignment we're going to focus on is this video documentary of Jeannie. So, Jeannie is a really interesting case where she was a child that was really just not nurtured well in her environment that she was raised in. She was left in a room by herself, chained to a potty chair. Her siblings were instructed not to speak to her. So, as a result, she didn't develop well physically, socially, emotionally. Cognitively, her language didn't develop. And so there's all these different aspects. So everything that we looked at last week when we did sections 1 and 2 of chapter 3, where we looked at the cognitive, emotional development of children, we really kind of see what happens when that goes wrong, when a child is not nurtured in the way that Jeannie was. So your assignment this week is to watch this video documentary. But before you watch it, I would encourage you to first go and look at this case study here. This is directly from the textbook, and this is just going to give you a really quick snapshot overview of Jeannie's case. So I would read this just kind of as a pre-reading before you get into the documentary, just so you have an idea of what it's all going to be about. From there, I would recommend that you go ahead and watch the video documentary, which is in this folder right here. It is an MP4, and for your planning purposes, it's roughly about 40 minutes in length, so you do want to budget your time so that you have time to watch it. And then after that, there's another article here, The Story of the Wild Child. I would highly recommend that you read this probably after you watch the documentary. So it should help fill in some of the gaps of the documentary, and I think you'll like the way it's broken up. First, it talks about her background, which you'll get that from your reading of the case study, and then also from the documentary. But it goes into a little bit more detail about teaching her this. You might be able to pull some information for your paragraph that you have to write this week from this article, because this talks about the critical period and language acquisition and what does that critical period mean. And again, it goes into more detail about how language progresses, the different arguments that psychologists had over how to care for Jeannie, and if any of that played a factor into what she was able to learn and how well or not well she was able to learn. And then lastly, I thought you might enjoy this last little bit here. Where is Jeannie today? Because I know when I was reading this for the first time, I was like, wow, I wonder, what happened to her? Where is she now and how is she doing? So there's some other articles here that you can, if you become really interested in this topic, you can go and look at some of these sources. And do some further reading on her. I actually did, because I found this case study really, really fascinating. So anyway, so read the case study from the textbook, which is posted on the on Schoology. Watch your documentary, and then go back and read this short little article just for some additional information. And then your last thing is going to be this Jeannie writing assessment. And so you're going to use the attached directions and rubric to complete your assignment for week 2. You'll be responsible for viewing the documentary about Jeannie and then reviewing her case study to complete the assignment. Excuse me. All right, this is the rubric for what you're going to be asked to do. The topic here is to discuss the impact of nurture. All right, so we talked about nature versus nurture. Nature, is what we're inherently born with, and we looked at some psychologists' some of which we found out believe that, parents don't really have a big factor here, that we, supply the genetics, but that really, it's our peer group, it's our environment, it's the nurturing that we get that really has to do a lot with development. And so this paragraph is kind of really examining that, the impact that nurture or the environment has had on the development of Jeannie. All right. And so what you're going to be asked to do is look at specific topics in your discussion. So include physical, cognitive, language, and emotional development of Jeannie. You should elaborate on and support 3 or more ways that Jeannie was affected developmentally, in her upbringing. So you're looking at, like I said, physical, cognitive, language, and emotional. So you're going to choose 3 of those in which she was affected and elaborate on those. You should use specific evidence from either the textbook, case study, the video documentary, and the article that I just went over with you. Remember to write your paragraph with using appropriate word choice. You should be using the vocabulary that is in Chapter 3 for developmental psychology. And if you use a source, either from your textbook or from an outside source, then you should give credit to it. You should cite it. All right. Requirements, 1 total paragraph here following the rubric. So I'm not asking for a huge long page. I don't want 2 pages. I don't want this massive essay. I just want a paragraph that shows that you watched the documentary, you did your reading, and you understand how her development was affected by her environment. So here's the scoring rubric. You've got a hook or topic sentence that draws us in. The main idea. So a minimum of 3 developmental effects. So like I said, you're pulling from physical, cognitive, language, and emotional development. You're choosing 3 of those, and you're going to elaborate on them and provide evidence from the videos, text, or online resources to support how those 3 aspects that you chose were affected. You're giving sources, credit to your sources. You should have a concluding sentence that indicates your higher understanding of the question of how nurture or environment had an effect on the development of Jeannie. And then lastly, it should have been proofread by you. So showing that this is your best work that includes spelling, grammar, punctuation, capitalization, etc. So this whole rubric is out of 20 points, okay? And for those that got on my Zoom call this morning, we talked about this rubric. This grade is not going in as you saw from last week. You're either getting 100 or you're getting a 0. It's for completion. So if you do everything that you're asked to do and you follow this rubric, you're going to get 100. The reason there's a rubric, though, is because I need to see that you did quality work. And even if you did it, if it's not quality, and there are parts of this rubric that are missing, or it's sloppy, or you're missing details, then you may not get credit for this week's assignment. So you don't have to get a 20 out of 20 on this in order to get your credit for doing the assignment for the week, but you also can't get a 3 out of 20 or a 6 out of 20. I need to see that you put some quality effort into this, and I need to be able to gauge your level of understanding of the topic. All right, so the rubric is kind of there as a guide for me, so I have something to kind of go off of, and to gauge how well you guys understood the content and material, and also to be able to give you guys some feedback. So that's the rubric. All right, as far as submitting it, so you should be able to, I think your page looks a little different than mine. You should be able to write a comment here, I believe, and make an attachment, although my page looks different. So if you're having trouble with that, send me a message, because I might need to rethink the way that this is posted on Schoology. Anyway, that's the assignment for the week. I missed a lot of you this morning on the Zoom call. I only had 3 students, so I don't know if that was my fault, if maybe you didn't know we had a meeting, or you just didn't feel like you needed to come. I'd love to see more of your faces next week. Um, so I will post a reminder in the updates on Schoology about when we're meeting next week, and how to log on. So if you can, make an effort to be there, and if not, I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to reading all of your paragraphs and hearing what you thought about this story of Jeannie. All right, talk to you later. Bye.